Yo, what is up? Welcome to Ninja Geek Games. Picture this, the aftermath of World War II. You've been involved in one of the biggest and deadliest conflicts in history, and just when you think it's over, the enemy are returning to life and shambling around as undead corpses. That's right, the evil Nazi soldiers are now zombies, which in my opinion is the worst kind, where an untold mass stands between you and your only form of escape. Well, it could be worse. Imagine if they were mutated in some way. Yeah, it's got those. Escape from Stalingrad Z is a survival horror campaign game with a little twist. In this relatively small box, there is a horde of components and content where the game is played inside a campaign book. This book includes a load of scenarios, each providing a detailed map, setup instructions, additional rules and exceptions, as well as some narrative and options for progression. The game is for 1 to 3 players, where you select a character with the ability to level up and gain loot, gear and weapons and be on the way into the pits of hell. Again. So this is the all-in version of the game that has some upgraded components and some pretty awesome miniatures for both characters and the zombies. You also get thick double-layered player boards that have some recessed areas for all your equipment needs, as well as tokens to record characters' health and fatigue. Other versions of the game include either standees or tokens in place of the miniatures, and the basic version has a print and play format of the player boards. There are a load of tokens that are required during the campaign for objectives, civilian locations or fires for example, and a huge armoury of weapons from clubs and daggers to flamethrowers and powerful machine guns. The game comes with some 12-sided die used for various mechanics like combat and initiative, and some smaller ones to mark particular actions that have been carried out, although these can be replaced by tokens. The campaign book is a thick, spiral-bound tome that acts as the board for each game. Every page represents different scenarios, so I'm not going to progress further than scenario 1 so as not to show any spoilers. This page provides rules for objectives and zombie spawning, but as you delve deeper into the campaign, you'll come across additional rules and exceptions for particular scenarios. All the maps are finely detailed and each is quite different with regards to starting locations and map exits. You'll have walls that block movement, doors and various types of terrain or fire marked out, and perhaps some objectives or areas of interest. Most scenarios include 1 or more spawn points and a zombie pool area, and on others a number of zombies will actually start the game ready for munching on the map. This is the round tracker that indicates where and when zombies are spawned, and may also include the timing of other game effects. The components in the game are of fantastic quality, the miniatures are awesome, and I actually prefer the tokens for characters and zombies over the card standees, where I even place my miniatures onto these tokens just to remind me of the zombie type. The miniatures also come in these well-designed boxes with foam inserts, so if you do decide to paint them, you have the perfect storage solution for the game. The artwork throughout is awesome, a little gruesome at times, but I like it. The scenario maps, zombie and character tokens all have a high level of detail that provides great table presence and is really thematic. A map filled with zombies, tokens and characters looks absolutely great in any of the formats that Raybox Games provides, and is most certainly eye-catching, which is what drew me to their booth like a zombie to warm flesh at UK Games Expo. But how does the game play out? Being a campaign game with a load of scenarios, are we looking at a grinding system with complex combat mechanics and ambiguous zombie movement? No, not really. The rules are quite well written, although long, and contain a lot of diagrams illustrating various examples during each section, which was most welcome. I mean, fighting a horde of zombies with limited food and ammo is difficult enough. A single game round in Escape from Stalingrad Z is fairly simple to play out. Roll for initiative to determine whether you or the zombies take the first turn, then players and the zombies take actions. For characters, you get a number of movement points to spend that allow you to move in different directions, open doors, turn facing or pass weapons to another player, to name a few. Each of these actions cost a different amount of points, but you do get 2 options on how to spend these. If you walk, you get 4 movement points, but if you run, you get 8. So why not just run everywhere to make use of the maximum number of movement points every turn? I'll show you. At the start of a round, you roll for initiative by rolling 2d12, one for the players and one for the zombies. Whoever rolls highest takes the first turn, although players can choose the order if they win, noting that due to the clumsiness of the undead, the zombies get a -4 modifier to their roll. If a player elects to walk, they get 4 movement points to spend. They can move in different directions, turn facing, all costing a different number of points, where moving through hindering terrain increases this cost. Choosing to walk provides your character with 11 different actions. If they run, they get double the movement points, but some of the actions themselves may increase in cost. Turning your facing or opening doors now costs 2 movement points, not 1, and you cannot move backwards or strafe and only have access to 8 actions. As well as escaping the clutches of cold dead hands, getting into firing position and completing objectives, your movement needs to be planned out. Some zombie tokens are hidden due to their location, but moving around the map can provide your character with line of sight, where the zombie tokens are then flipped revealing their type. Getting this line of sight is the first step in combat, where, as we'll see shortly, your ability to attack a zombie is hindered if you chose to run. Firstly, the initiative mechanic is simple but fun and thematic. Zombies get a negative modifier to their rolls due to their simplistic nature, but some mutant types can provide a little motivation to the horde that removes this trait. Also, at times, a well-planned turn can be scuppered due to an unlucky initiative roll in the next round, meaning the zombies close in or get a chance to wound you. I really like the walk or run mechanic. Do you take it slow, opening up options to multiple actions, or blitz your way through at high speed and leave yourself trying to steady your weapon on a zombie's forehead? Your choice is situational, requires forward planning, and may change if you don't get to act first. I really like the fact that you sometimes have to take risks. Walk and become closed in, but you have a better chance of success in combat. In fact, if you're feeling particularly steadfast, you can opt to remain stationary and do nothing except take a deep breath and calmly aim down the barrel of your gun, or prepare to land a well-timed blow with a club. Combat is fairly straightforward. I think the difficulties only come with remembering the various modifiers to take into consideration. In its simplest form, you need line of sight, a range check, and then roll the dice and compare the result to the weapon's stat value. Each weapon will have various stats for stunned and wound values in hand-to-hand combat, and others include those for range combat values. Ranged weapons also show the maximum distance the weapon is most effective at. As long as you're in range and have line of sight, the mechanics for hand-to-hand combat and range is similar. Simply roll the dice and compare the result to the stunned and wound value of the weapon. If you roll equal to or higher than the stun value, the zombie is stunned and becomes an easier target for combat in the future, as well as not being able to carry out an action on its next turn. If your roll is equal to or higher than the wound value, you inflict a wound to the zombie, and in most cases it's defeated. Okay, this is the most basic form of combat, but now we need to quickly go over the various modifiers that some may feel clunky, at least at first. If you remain stationary during your turn, you get to reduce the stunned and wound values of the weapon by 2. If attacking a stunned zombie, then reduce them by 3. And these modifiers are cumulative. So if you remain stationary and attack a zombie that's stunned, you reduce these values by 5. But are you firing through hindering terrain, past another miniature, or did you perhaps run this turn? That's a negative modifier for each that now increases the weapon stat values, and you'll also need to take in any character abilities or fatigue values into consideration too. Therefore, you could end up with various combinations that you need to work out, and I've not even discussed range. Each gun or ranged weapon has a range value that shows the maximum distance the weapon is most effective. If you fire outside this range, you'll need to increase the target values of the weapon's stun and wound stats. This value in orange in the bottom right corner of the weapon token shows how often this excess range is modified. So, for the trusty Luger, you add 1 to the stun value for every single square the zombie is out of range. For the MG34, this has a range of 5, but you add 1 to the weapon's stat value for every 3 squares the zombie is out of range. Therefore, you do have some calculations to work out before combat, and may also need to consider which of your weapons provides the greatest chance of success, and this becomes a little more critical when you have that all or nothing turn. This can cause some analysis paralysis, especially during the first few scenarios where you're getting used to the game mechanics and remembering that diagonals add 2 to range, but I will say it becomes much easier to manage, even second nature, with the more games you play. If you can't or don't want to attack during a turn, perhaps because zombies are out of range or behind terrain, you can instead go into covering fire, which is like Overwatch. This allows you to attack later in the round, and whether you ran, walked or were stationary, you'll have a different modifier for the attack. To help remember this, use small dice showing the modifier number to add to the weapon stat value, which I thought was pretty cool. Are zombies hoarding together, cutting off an exit and walling you in? No problem. You can spread machine gun fire over a number of targets and also throw grenades, which is great fun. I like the mechanic for determining whether the grenade lands in the target square. They could deviate and can actually cause damage over quite a large area, and so can backfire. Zombies get to take their actions as a group, where they attempt to move to the closest target, lock their cold dead hands on you and have a little taste causing wounds. Most zombies will move one space and avoid terrain and fire. As mentioned, zombie type can remain hidden until within line of sight, but if they get close enough they can lock onto you and attempt to cause wounds. Locked in by a zombie is represented by this symbol, meaning you have to make a combat roll just to escape or remain in place and lose wounds while watching other zombies close in. Zombies also have an area of control around them, so you can't just walk by. You need to stop all movement, so you'll need to find another route or take them out. At the end of a round, zombies may spawn from various spawn sites on the map, and the tokens are taken from the pool that was created at setup, so there is an ever-rolling addition to the horde of zombies as the game continues. There are a number of various zombie types to whet your appetite, or their appetite if you will. Some are armoured and can't be stunned, or pop if hit, leaving a poisonous gas behind. Others are souped up badasses, moving faster and having a greater number of wounds that also spur the standard zombies into an aggressive form. We also have bosses, and as the campaign continues, scenarios will add extra abilities to these types, representing ongoing formidable mutations and evolution that make them a lot harder to defeat and become the focus of an objective. The story component of the campaign is good. It is a campaign after all, but fairly light in volume but dark in content. You get some narrative before and after a scenario, options to choose routes, or scavenge for ammo and food before continuing, as well as reading certain passages if secondary objectives were met. Any weapons and gear found, or wounds and fatigue taken, are carried through, so you'll need to manage your character's health carefully. Searching areas or carrying out a scavenge may allow you to heal or decrease fatigue that can affect certain actions later in the game. You'll need to ensure you find ammo, as a poor roll in combat can spend it, leaving you with only a set of melee weapons until you can locate more. I thought the scenarios were very well constructed and varied enough to keep me entertained for a campaign of this size. I had to rescue civilians, navigate minefields, free comrades, put out fires and fight to the death just to keep warm. Scavenging for gear can be seen as repetitive, as you attempt the same map time after time, but the zombie pool does change each play and the content of loot varies depending on the level of progression, so it didn't bother me. Okay, admit it, we're all here for killing zombies, and this provides experience points where each character has 3 special abilities that become active when your body count is high enough. Although the number of skills available is few, they are game changers and sorely needed, giving free actions or reducing stat values of favoured weapons. To record these, you'll need to use dice or pen and paper, because your zombie death ratio will become exceptionally high, which is both morbid and absolutely fascinating at the same time. I really enjoyed this. I tried one scenario at UK Games Expo and could not wait to get it to the table, and I'm not disappointed. It's very quick to set up and put away. I like how initiative works and the choice you have for what actions are available based on your decision to walk or run. The excessive combat modifiers aren't a problem, as you do get to grips with them very quickly, and we even have an Overwatch mechanic to spice things up. It's refreshing to have a thematic campaign system that fits inside a small box and doesn't require huge amounts of space on the table. I'm a sucker for zombie games, and although some of the scenarios become a little dark, I'm talking barbecued civilians, I thought the scenarios were all very engaging. Although the game allows up to 3 players, I much preferred this as a solo game, controlling all characters which you pick up along the way. There are enough zombie variants to keep you entertained, and a huge arsenal of weapons to include charges, axes, snipers and molotovs to help you rack up those experience points. Escape from Stalingrad Z is likely to hit one of the top spots for new games that I've played in 2023, and possibly one of my favourite campaign tabletop experiences. Thank you for watching. This is Ninja Geek Games. Cheers.